is now being recorded. Delighted to welcome everybody here. Delighted to welcome our speakers today. We've got Rachel, Jessica, and we've got Daniel as well. Delighted to have you guys here talking about Absorb, talking about customer education and that customer experience growth driver. The audiences for these choose themselves. We've got nearly 50 people here. Really fascinated to see what you're covering today. I'll hand it over to you guys.
Wonderful. Thanks, Andrew. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year, firstly. Greetings from very cold Dublin in Ireland. I think we have a mixed group today, which is great. Thank you to the Learning Technologies group for having us. We're very excited to be here and recognize that there's likely a mixed audience with us today, to Andrew's point earlier. Experts, beginners, and teams just figuring out where to start with their customer education program. Rest assured, you're in the right place. Today is really about clarity, not about perfection, as it pertains to an ever-evolving new industry norm, customer education. So let's just take a step back. I think learning has always mattered, but historically it was treated kind of as a check the box mentality and not very strategic. That has changed. Traditionally it lived in HR with compliance and internal training, and often very disconnected from business performance. That's now changing. Organizations are doubling down to understand how can customer education improve their bottom line, drive business performance, but also appease their customer base. And learning is really expanding into this, what we call strategic learning. So customer enablement, customer education, customer engagement, we use these terms interchangeably, and it is becoming a powerhouse. Impact is now measurable across customer value. You have growth, innovation, and efficiency. And technology is at the intersection of all that. It has really accelerated this shift with AI-driven content, personalized just-in-time learning, faster learning without adding headcount as companies scale. So it really is at a crossroads. And according to recent studies, customer education spend has nearly tripled in the last 5 years, and it's expected to even double in the next 2. So no better time for us to dive right in today to talk things all customer education as a customer experience growth driver. So a bit about me. My name is Darren O'Connor. I have spent the last 10 years in customer service and customer facing roles, 6 of which have been in the e-assessment and edtech space. And if there's one thing that has been true across my career and tenure, it's this. When you look after your customers, they look after your bottom line. I'm a firm believer in voice of the customer and delivering exemplary service. Today, I lead customer success at Absorb Software, where I oversee our customer support, technical services, and our customer success organization. So a day in the life, I spend a lot of time directly speaking to our customers, whether they're in EMEA, North America, or in APAC, and just as much time hearing from our client success managers who serve our 4,000 customers about what they're seeing in the field, what organizations are struggling with as it relates to learning and development. Different companies have different products, but very similar objectives and very similar challenges. And often customers don't know where to start. They're like a deer in headlights. Where do I start with my customer education program? Onboarding tends to feel overwhelming. Education tends to exist, but it isn't a guiding or leading indicator. And most organizations don't have a content problem. They have a precision structure problem. At Absorb, I've had the opportunity to build our own customer education program when I joined the organization back in 2021. And I've seen firsthand the benefits and how education can be treated as a system, not just as an afterthought. Stronger adoption, better customer satisfaction, better growth rates. That's why this topic is near and dear to me. So at a very personal level, I'm spending a lot of time learning how AI can help me and my team grow. What I'm practicing, less process, more progress. Less problems, more solutions. And on a personal level, just bought a home in Dublin. So when I'm not tackling customers and working with my team here at Absorb, you'll find me scrolling on TikTok, trying to find DIY as a source of inspiration. So I'll pass you over to my wonderful colleague now, Jessica.
Thanks very much, Darren. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Pratty, and I am a Senior Client Success Manager at Absorb Software. Like Darren, I'm based in Dublin in Ireland. And I've been working with customers in the L&D space for over 6 years now, really with the focus on success planning and aligning business strategies with their learning initiatives. Outside of my day job, just a little bit about myself, something that I'm learning is habit stacking. So this is building new habits, hopefully positive ones, off of existing ones, like clearing off my work from home desk when I also close my laptop for the day. Something I'm practicing, digital minimalism, which is kind of funny given we work with software, but just finding ways each day to disconnect from all of the screens. And something I'm mastering, vertical gardening. So my outdoor space right now is limited to a balcony. So this involves making sure all of my balcony plants are thriving in a tight space. And that's exactly what I do professionally as well, helping my customers achieve ROI with their existing tech stack. But that is enough about me. Next up, we have the star of the show, Rachel.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you for inviting me to be with you in the webinar today. So I'm Rachel Ramos. I'm a director at Quolux. I'm one of the founding directors. We'll be 15 years old this year, and we're leadership and management specialists working across the southwest of England, the west of England, but we're based in Cheltenham in the UK. I'm physically based in Brazil, though, in Salvador. So it's morning for me here. We're about 3 hours behind the UK. And we work with small to medium-sized businesses on leadership development and business growth as well. What I'm working on at the moment is how to use AI to be more productive, more streamlined. There's so much AI out there. I think the first thing I look at is which AI tool can help me to do whatever the thing that I want help with, which one is the best one. So that's what I look up on AI first, which tool to use. What I'm practicing is keeping my inbox to under 50 emails. When I put that, I thought that would be achievable, but with hindsight, with Christmas and the new year, it's kind of ballooned to a bit more than that. So I'm working on bringing it back down. And personally, what I'm mastering, 2 years ago, we had the great opportunity to buy a holiday home here in Salvador. And it's taken us about 2 years to get it ready, to get a whole new house ready with everything in it that people would want and need if they're renting it. It has taken a long time, but we're ready. And so now it's about maximizing rental opportunities on a certain hosting platform, how to be the best hosts that we can to attract more people to rent it there. So that's a little bit about me.
Wonderful. Definitely would love to swap places with you, Rachel, on Dublin versus Brazil. Maybe one day.
We'll do it.
Okay, so in terms of what is customer education, let me just ground this in a real life scenario that I think might resonate with some of you. You buy a platform or a tool, the implementation goes well, everybody in the organization or you as the buyer is optimistic, and then the day-to-day reality sets in. You log into the platform, you see a lot of options, you get overwhelmed, you aren't sure what matters most, and then adoption quietly stalls. Nothing is broken, but often the value is delayed. And this is something that we see with customers. And it's where most organizations struggle. Support tickets start to flood in, the confidence of the customer drops, and then the teams react after the fact, which is a recipe for disaster. So the problem isn't the product, it's the customers are being asked to figure it out on their own, which again, it just isn't conducive. So customer education changes that trajectory. And instead of leaving customers to explore things on their own carelessly, you have to guide them throughout the process, particularly in today's day and age. So I think this is a very interesting stat. We recently conducted a study with a partner, Forrester Consulting, commissioned by Absorb, on the importance of strategic learning. And 97% of the participants verified that they are actively using or piloting customer education. I think that really shows where this, whole phenomenon is going, because when education is designed intentionally, it drives measurable businessable impact, which is at the forefront of all executives and boards right now. How do we improve bottom line without scaling headcount? And the most advanced teams use customer education as a growth framework. Driving usage, driving expansion, winning new deals, new logos, new customers, and even when creating markets through certifications via advocacy. So it's the same engine, but very different business outcomes. So I'll pass you over to Jessica for a quick poll.
Super. So just kicking things off here, we'd love to hear from the group here. What's your current customer education program like?
I've opened up a separate box for this one, so I can see Deborah's typing in this one. If you can put your response in this, what's your current customer education program like? So on the basis of Darren was discussing it. Tell us, what's your current education program, customer education program? I can see people typing. I love it. What happens is that we ask a question, guys, and then it goes all quiet. And then all of a sudden, bam, 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 all the responses come in. Sabrina, use a knowledge management system and it's knowledge on demand.
Brilliant.
Interesting. Okay. E-learning modules on the LMS, says Emily, which is pretty common, I think. I think people realized there was an opportunity to train customers that way. Kajal, we have an internal adoption team that posts training on our LMS and SharePoint site. What do you think of these answers so far, guys? I say guys, team,
Yeah,
people.
a very mixed bag. I think knowledge base or a KMS or a KCS is definitely a lot of what we see with our own customers. LXP, I just see Louise put in, and also an LMS, which is great, near and dear to me and Jessica's heart, and also Rachel.
It's what I think is really interesting is because of how employees arguably should be easier to train than customers, because they're coming there with a purpose. Customers come in generally with a specific issue, and it's how and it's education as opposed to training, which I think is really interesting. Mainly how-to, guys, says Paul, which I think is interesting. And an offering of a monthly issue rating form on Teams. That's good. So there's the feedback piece. Laura, work areas on our own platform with startup training and integrated KMS as well. Sophie, large, expansive, changing and evolving, an ELN subscription, SVS, ATC, etc., and software adoption at the forefront. And a question from Sophie, are traditional certification programs going out the window? That's a good question. And maybe something that, I don't know if we want to pick it up now, or do you want to pick it up later, guys?
I think at a very high level, we still see a trend of customers adopting certification programs via badging, where they can share it on LinkedIn and sing from the rooftops that they've done the training. It definitely isn't dying out from what we see with our own customers.
Yeah. Great. Edwin has put in the other chat, have always found a customer education mindset works well, if not better than a purely sales mindset. 100% agree with that one, Edwin. Ines has asked, what KMS do people use? If you use the knowledge management system in that chat, the general chat in the middle, or sorry, on the right-hand side, please put in which KMS do you use and how you managing that knowledge. Hannah, we've got fitting instructions online, then installers are trained to fit products through videos. Video is a really big one now. The growth of video is enormous. Anything stand out to you, Darren?
No, I would just say we're not dealing with an amateur crowd by the sounds of it. I think everybody is definitely very proficient in their field, which is great.
I warned you, didn't I? I did warn you. I said we would have different tiers of people. 50 people. It's not hundreds of people. But you've got an audience who want to be here about this stuff, which is fabulous. I'm going to close this chat box down. Zaliham, I can see you typing. I'll give you a moment just to finish typing, and then I'm going to close that box down, and then we'll go to the back to the deck. E-learning modules on the LMS as well. Wonderful. Fabulous. Right. Let me go back to the presenting mode. That box will close down. In the recording, by the way, everybody, you can come back and have a look and see what other people are doing. Really useful and interesting to come back and have a look and see who else is doing stuff and connect with them. Build connections. That's what this stuff's about. Brilliant. Thank you, Darren.
No worries. Thanks, Andrew. I think you can tell we're only 18 minutes in and we love a good stat. So this one, I think, resonates. 78% of customers, based on a research that I recently read from HubSpot, their self-service stat report, mentioned that, 78% of customers prefer to solve issues independently. I think that is definitely, again, where the customer experience is going with the evolution of AI, but also investment in customer education. Speaking personally, I know I dread picking up the phone to speak to somebody, whether it be Vodafone, whether it be your, electric provider, or submitting tickets. I prefer finding out the answers on my own, and I think a lot of people do. And that's not really a rejection of people; it's more so a preference for autonomy, which a lot of our customers have brought up in conversations in the last year or so. customers want answers in real time, and that problem continues to show up in the format that works for them. So some of you put in the poll there, you're using an LMS, some are using a knowledge management system, some are using tutorials, FAQ guides. So you have to have a diverse educational program that caters to the needs of your people. People learn in very different ways. Personally, again, I like micro-learning sessions, something quick, snappy, that it will resonate and digest. And we see more customers want less friction as possible. It shouldn't be this dreaded nightmare of, I have to go in and log into this system. I have to trawl through knowledge-based documentation to get the answer that I need. So when customer education is done right, it becomes a fundamental and powerful self-service tool for a business. So it's not just helpful, but it's a real needle mover. And it's being treated very seriously. A lot of customers that I speak to, conversations around how do I build out my program? How do I justify to our executive team that this isn't a cost center? It is a revenue engine. And that's what we're going to cover today. And this shows up in very practical ways. If you get it right, it leads to higher retention, stronger customer satisfaction, fewer support tickets, but also deeper product adoption. When customers win, something else happens. They advocate for you, they recommend you, they become more sticky, which is a dream for most organizations in today's competitive landscape. And this is where the theory meets reality. So I really want to bring in one of our loyal customers in Europe, Rachel Ramos from Kulux, to share how she and her team have applied this in practice and what results they've seen with their program. So over to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Darren. So I've got 3 slides here, and hopefully I'll unpack some of the stuff that you've been talking about as well. So as I said earlier, we do leadership development and business strategy, working with small to medium-sized businesses. So that's anywhere between over 10 people and under 500 across the west of England. We also have clients across Europe and Asia, Australia as well. And so as a business, we create and deliver the training to these organizations, mainly face-to-face. That's how we started. So during the pandemic, our whole business was tipped upside down with lockdown. Obviously, we couldn't have face-to-face programs. And we couldn't launch new programs either because we couldn't bring people together. So we took time in lockdown to nurture our existing clients with online support, offering them support, virtually where we could, bringing them together. There was a whole conversation. Do we use Zoom? Do we use Teams? Back then, that seems quite a while ago now. Which one should we go for? And because of the relationships that we have with them, they trusted us, that we knew what we were doing and that we could help them. And it worked. And what we realized is that we could and needed to build a second pillar to our organization. We couldn't be wholly reliant on in-person programs if there were more lockdowns, which there were. So we started to build the second pillar to our core business, which was online offerings. So we took the time to understand how to take the information, the knowledge that we have from our in-person programs and move it into offering it in an online format. Not as simple as everybody knows now, not as simple as just taking a set of slides and dumping it online. You've got to make everything really interesting, interactive, and everybody knows that. So taking the time to create the content and creating these online programs and short courses as well. So we started to do that, and we started our LMS journey on a different platform to Absorb. And at the time, it mostly did what we wanted. But as we grew and we understood more about how our clients wanted to work, and they understood more about what worked for them and what didn't, we found that we were having to bolt on more and more workarounds to this other LMS. So we took the decision to move to Absorb because we needed a platform that's much broader, more dynamic with their product development to keep up with the user experience demands, and also with the capability to manage high numbers there. So with the knowledge and tools that we had from our in-person programs, we decided on key themes that individuals, teams, and managers and directors need to know around the topic of leadership and management, which is our area that we work in. And we digitized it to create a range of how-to skill build courses for personal, team, and organizational development there. So how-tos, these are bite-sized pieces of know-how that they don't take away from our in-person programs. So if somebody did our how-to range, they could still do all of our in-person programs as well. but it just meant that our clients can upskill people across their whole organization, from skilled worker to, for entry level, skilled worker, up to middle manager, supervisor, up to senior leader, board directors, C-suite, all using this common leadership and management language. And so we mainly sell our how-to skill build program to our existing clients who are looking to develop their team and looking for organizational development there. That's our 3 circles. And we're also starting to sell it as a product to new clients. So from a standing start in early 2021, when we were able to launch our how-tos, we had 0 sales. We had 1 client that was willing to try it out with us. We released it to them on a trial basis for free for a month or so with a small cohort. And then as it gained traction and they could see the value of it, we were able to roll it out to more clients. We get a lot of our selling comes from referrals from client to other clients. They all like to see what our clients are doing, and we have a very tight community there. And so from a standing start with 0 sales in 2021, we're really pleased to see that now this side of our business, the online side, is about 25% of our turnover, and it's growing year on year. So I'm responsible for the online side. So I can be based in Salvador in Brazil, and as long as I have the internet, it's absolutely fine. So this shows our dashboard. This is our welcome dashboard when people log on, and also this is an example of just 2 of the how-tos at level 2 with all the different features that we have on the that we use on the LMS there. What we know is that over half of the businesses in the UK, though, they don't provide training for their employees, and over 80% of managers, they'll get promoted into their role with no training for it at all. And we also know, especially in small to medium-sized businesses, that around 2/3 of them don't have a business plan. So in the main, we're working with companies that they don't have a strategy going ahead for the year, and they also don't invest in training in their employees. So talking to them about training and development, it's nowhere near being in the picture for the majority of these businesses. So getting the senior leaders, the decision makers, to understand the need to skill build across the layers of the organization can be really difficult. But because we have really good relationships with our clients who do our in-person programs, when we introduce them to our how-to range, it's much easier to talk to them about it. In fact, it's not even upselling it to them. It becomes a natural conversation about how they're going to develop their organization. And the medium for doing that is our how-to range. We sell it as a subscription model program over 18 months, and we release parts of it every quarter that the company works through in small groups. And so, for the next 18 months, we've managed to extend and increase the lifetime value of our clients there. And then they will often start new cohorts as well. So in order to make using the how-tos as smooth as possible and making sure that our clients have this positive experience with online learning with us, we do an awful lot of nurturing, especially with our onboarding, which I believe we'll talk about shortly, but also with regular face-to-face review sessions with them to get them to reflect on the learning that they're getting from the content and the courses there. And also with these touch points that we have with them, it helps us to maintain our relationship with them as well. We're always building better relationships, and one of our values in Quolux is personal touch as well. And even though I'm responsible and I look after all the online stuff, there's not a day goes by that I'm not on the LMS looking at something, checking in with a user when necessary as well. What we're looking for, our next step, is expanding our e-commerce. So we are committed to continue selling our how-to range to existing clients, to more existing clients, and also starting to sell them to new clients that we haven't historically worked with on our in-person programs. But our long-term goal has always been to franchise our programs, and especially with our how-to range, we've been looking at licensing it. We're in talks with a training provider company in India who are interested in selling our how-tos to their clients. And because of the way that we can use the LMS on Absorb to set up different departments, we believe that we can set up this training provider in India with their own department and do training with them, train the trainer type stuff for them to have an admin person that can then control the onboarding of their clients. I can use, so for example, they would buy a certain number of seats on the LMS and we would bill them for it directly. I can release that number of seats on the enrollment keys for onboarding, and then they control and manage that further down the line their end, and they can bill their own clients directly. So in fact, we don't even need to go near licensing fees for this. We can set it up like this to test the relationship, to prove the concept that it works, and then further down the line we can look at licensing. But numbers talked about in the beginning with this company in India were anywhere between 5,000 users to start with to test it out, moving up to 1 million users. And talking to the Absorb team, we feel confident that that can be done as well there. And that's my little bit there.
Super. So we have our first poll here. Question to the group again. What is the primary goal of your customer education program?
Oh, bear me 1 second, everybody. Let me put the right question there. There we go. That's better. Let's put the right question up. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? There we go. So what's the primary goal of your customer education program? And there were a few answers there. There's onboarding, product adoption, customer retention, etc. If you've got a don't know or another, then please put it in the chat for us and let us know. We're having a few responses. There's not many responses coming so far. There's about 10 or so with 40, 50 people in the room. I think it's 50 people in the room still. Yeah. Let us know. Stick the responses in. I'm going to broadcast the results live in a moment. But yeah, what's your primary goal? If you don't have a goal, let us know. Let me broadcast the results. There we go.
Product adoption out on top.
Is that a surprise, Darren?
No. Interesting.
I did ask that question in the chat. Is there a correlation between learning, training, education, and product usage itself? Does anybody measure usage, and product usage with product adoption, for example? Customer retention, decrease support costs is interesting. Nobody has said it's to decrease support costs.
Wow.
That's a surprise. Interesting. Product adoption is still the highest. I can see Deborah, there's a couple of people typing. Revenue generation, 10% of you have said that it's about revenue generation. Is that the idea that is that to do with customer retention in some form? Let us know in the chat. Deborah says, in our case, I feel like product adoption leads to customer retention and revenue generation. So the idea is people buy the product, use the product, and then they then stay with you as a result of it. It's interesting that the coming from a public sector, but I do a lot of public sector work, and they do a lot of that education piece before they buy, which I think is interesting. What are your thoughts on the results? Any query? Anything else anybody would like to add to that?
I would just say it's to your point, Andrew, it's not a surprise. We recently at Absorb did a in-house analysis with our chief growth officer and some of the team around how, looking at the engagement of our platform, to Sophie's point in the chat there, we've seen a direct correlation. We deemed it as project impact, looking at the enrollments, the completions, how actively and concurrently customers were logging into the system. And we use a tool called Pendo, which is a digital adoption tool to understand where are customers veering off in the customer lifecycle. And that the long and short is higher and sticky customers, there was a direct correlation to higher usage. So we're all speaking the same language by the sounds of it, which is great.
Awesome. I'm going to close that poll down. So we've got those results locked in. I'm going to close that window down as well. I can see Deborah and Paul are still typing in that window. Deborah's put hers in, Paul. I'll give you another 5 seconds. There we go. Fabulous. I'll close that window down again. Again, thank you, everybody. Thank you for putting your comments in. Really useful just to help build and understand the context.
So when we talk about value, I think that is probably the most integral area to measure. This is really where customer education stops being theoretical and starts driving real business outcomes. Embedded education doesn't help customers just learn faster. It really helps them achieve value faster. And that's the real difference in how you can differentiate yourself in the market. And as you can see from the stat there in the left column, I found it very interesting. 58% of customers who completed a structured onboarding program are more likely to adopt your product and ancillary add-ons. So I think and I would think it was a question in the chat there around, is structured onboarding and certification programs going out the window? I don't necessarily think so. I think as customers go through particularly a complex product or a multifaceted product, it can be daunting. So to give them the relevant tools to get up to speed, they realize value quicker, which is a win-win for everybody. The biggest risk window isn't just the renewal. It's the first 30 to 90 days where they're meeting the players and understand the game. That's when customers are really orientating themselves and getting to know the who, what, when, here, and wow. The structured role-based onboarding as well. At Absorb, we onboard customers via a designated implementation consultant to understand what are your goals, how do we get you there, what product functionality would be compatible with your use case. But in parallel, we have an abundance of different self-help resources, an academy, we have our knowledge base housed on Zendesk, we have an array of different self-help resources. So it's all around making it tailored to your customer audience, understanding that there's different nuances based on the industry and the use case that you're catering to. So a mix and blend, as you look here in the right hand column in the middle there, it's really about interactive tutorials, role-based paths, and delivering education in the format and language that customers actually prefer. Because you will have an array of different audiences with diverse needs and wants. So it's very important that you're catering to all those. And outcomes to measure, I'm a firm believer, if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. So when you're starting off your program, you need to be very explicit. What am I trying to achieve? Is it to grow revenue? Is it to increase customer satisfaction, which in turn will improve retention? Or is it to onboard customers quickly? I've seen this building our own program. If you get bogged down and trying to do everything, you won't get anything done. So focus on one metric in isolation, and then the rest will follow. But it's very important that you measure it. So when we launched ours, speaking as a marquee user for our program, we measured time to value for customers going through the implementation process. We also looked at our NPS rates, our customers finding the educational material useful. And that shows up essentially how well your program is doing. And you can always pivot and iterate. Getting started is the hardest part. So I might just have a few conversations here with the audience, Rachel and Jessica. Over to you, Rachel. You've seen success by walking through QLOC's focus on onboarding. Can you maybe walk through what that looked like in practice and how you got there?
Yeah, sure. So depending on the program that we're talking about, we do different types of onboarding. For example, our in-person program, our flagship one is called Lead, and it's for C-suite, owner managers, directors, the decision makers of these businesses. So we go and have a one-to-one, face-to-face meeting with them before the program starts, just to get them ready for the program. And as part of that, we build into it, getting them to log into the LMS. So I send them their details. It's very much a personalized part. And then sitting next to them, we get them to go to the collaboration area, and they put a little welcome message to introduce themselves to the others on the program because they haven't met previously. And then we know that they can they've got their login details. We show them how to get back to the LMS via our website, and we know that they can use it there. Then part of the Lead program, we have monthly masterclasses with all the delegates that we have. So we hold a think tank afterwards that brings the groups together so they can talk about their learning and start to unpack what they took from the masterclass. But we also get them to bring their laptops. And once they've talked about their learning in their group, we call it a cohort, we get them to actually go to the collaboration area for that particular masterclass and post their key learning into a message there. So that helps to capture some of the learning. And it also means that others can go back and read what their peers have written about so that they're learning from each other. But also it gets them to start using the LMS regularly, because I think, as somebody put in the comments, if you don't make it a habit for them, it just gets lost. And on this particular program, we're talking about the owner managers of these companies. They don't have the time to do things necessarily. They're very time poor. So building it into our programs and making it part of it is the way that works. Conversely, though, for our how-to program, which is the subscription model that companies use for organizational development, it's you have much bigger groups there. What we do, depending on the size, is I will either bulk enroll everybody on the group and they'll get a personalized automatic welcome email from me. Then I can go in and check that they are actually creating their accounts. Or I might set up an enrollment key and I send it to the company's HR manager or their training manager, whoever's responsible, for them to send out. And I send them suggested wording that they can do as well to send out to their groups. For our how-tos, sorry, just to finish this, for our how-tos, we do in our kickoff sessions, because whilst the how-tos are independent learning, we don't leave them to learn independently. We bring them together for review sessions on a quarterly basis, so that we have these touch points with them, and they're also learning from each other, and they can give us feedback as well. So we do a kickoff session before it starts. We get them to log on, check that they've set up their accounts. We walk them through the platform, how they're physically going to work their way through the content in the course, what's expected of them, and we point out the different features as well. The features that will help to increase their engagement, make sure that the completion levels are kept high, and all about the reminders, the progress, the leaderboard, so there's a bit of friendly competition, the search bars, the tagging, all these things that will help to educate them, but actually showing them about it. And we're all about experiential learning, so we then get them to go on and give it a try, just so they get this better user experience, and then the uptake of the program is more successful there.
Excellent. You're definitely a SME in the area, Rachel, by the sounds of it. So kudos. Looking here at around, I referenced this earlier on, reducing customer friction as it relates to customer education. It can definitely help in that vein. This is really where education pays for itself. I work very closely with a vendor of our Zendesk. I presented at one of their conferences in Las Vegas recently. And one of the key trends that came out was 67% of their customers prefer to self-serve over speaking to somebody. And again, that goes back to the earlier stat around resolving things independently. That is where the customer experience is going. Support teams, I look after a support team here at Absorb. Like, we want customers to get answers quickly, and the teams are under pressure, the volumes are rising, the costs are climbing, and the customer patience candidly is shrinking. So customers have been very clear what they want, when they want it, and how they want to process it. They don't want to open a ticket. They want to solve the problem and move on. So when education is embedded into that experience, the support mindset shifts. It stops being that first line of defense and becomes the last. And this isn't just about trawling through articles. It's about just-in-time answers on a knowledge base that is robust, that can really give customers at their fingertips the answers that they need before a ticket is ever created. In-app guides like Pendo or tools like WalkMe, they really help with digital adoption. And when it works, the signal is immediate. Knowledge, engagement rates rise, ticket volumes drop, cost per interaction falls, and support teams can focus on that real meaty work, that solving problems for customers or driving them to strategic conversations. So I'll just close this out by saying customer education doesn't remove the need for support. It removes the friction, and every support ticket, from my experience, is a signal. Education decides whether you see it once or 1,000 times. And as you can see here on the right-hand side, some of the measurements that we look at is knowledge-based traffic, ticket deflection, cost per support interaction, and also with the evolution of AI, that's definitely helping us. Okay, so Okay.
Sorry, Darren. Actually, just a quick question for you, just to kind of elaborate to the group here. Can you talk a little bit more about how Absorb is using education to reduce friction?
Absolutely, really good question. So we have 4,000 customers, give or take, globally, spanning an array of different use cases, Jessica, and industries. I think you know yourself, you deal with majority of our enterprise customers in the EMEA market, spanning logistics, pharma, manufacturing, to we have so many different customers. It's fascinating. They could be using the system for compliance, product and process training, supplier training, franchise training. The list goes on. And as we've scaled, 30% growth year over year, we had to stand up a formal customer education program because otherwise we would have been left behind. So I had the pleasure of building it out. So we have an academy, which is a training portal with self-service and on-demand tutorials and videos. Right now, I think we have, give or take, 100 courses where customers go through their onboarding training, they do their necessary homework to back up learning on the job. We also have a robust knowledge base, which we update, weekly, daily with our technical writer team and our customer enablement specialists. And that's really a help center with vast documentation that covers some of those FAQs, new feature documentation, release demos, release notes. So they would be the ones that we leverage at Absorb.
Super, thanks.
So looking at growth, paramount for any leader, any team right now, customer education can be a real needle mover. And a trained customer is often a happy customer, who in turn is a sticky customer, which in turn is a win-win for everybody, the customer and also the business. And this is really at the intersection of where customer education can play a crucial role, where it moves beyond this traditional enablement mindset and becomes a strategic mover for the business. I often see this boiling down to simplistically to, I like to say, education creates experts, experts create influence, and influence drives expansion and results. According to research conducted by Bain, increasing retention within your install base by 5% can increase the company's profits from anywhere between 25 to 95%. So that implies when customers are confident and successful and they trust your platform, the behavior changes. They don't just renew, they expand and they advocate for you. We recently seen that. We had, 30 customers fly into Calgary to our HQ for an Absorbees award, where we recognize the wonderful work that they're doing in their industry, including the Scottish Autism Society for the work that they're doing. We had a client based out of Hawaii. So it really is where the industry is going, and your customers expect that you invest in education. I think that's a no-brainer in today's competitive landscape, and the outcomes have to be tangible and measurable. So you'll see here again on the right, we have an advocacy program, a referral program, upsell and cross-sell growth, expansion velocity. This is growth powered by education, not persuasion. So maybe over to you, Rachel. Like, what are you doing in this area today as it pertains to growth and the correlation with customer education? I think you might be on mute. Sorry.
I was, sorry. So I was saying that with our how-tos, the subscription model, part of that is we do quarterly review sessions where we go into the organizations itself and we facilitate the session as external facilitators, which holds them more responsible and more accountable to actually doing the how-tos to get them up to a certain level that they need to be in the program. Because what we ask them to do in the review session is we want them to share their learning, what they've been taking from the content, what they've implemented back in their day-to-day roles. And because they're in a group from entry level up to director level, they are learning from each other. And so because they're expected to share that learning, we have to make sure that they have completed the content before we get there. So I work very closely with the HR manager or the training manager in terms of setting them up as an admin on their department so they can look at their users' progress. And I also keep an eye on it, make sure that if they need to nudge anybody, to make sure that they've caught up with doing that. And then because they are implementing stuff and they're talking about it and learning about it together, they can see positive changes happening in their organization, in their teams, across the organization, which means that more employees want a part of it. They also want to be upskilled or reskilled. And so when we don't even ask it's not a sales pitch. When are you going to start the next cohort? It's more of a natural conversation about what is the next rollout of the organizational development and who will be in the next group that you're going to launch. So we're constantly extending and increasing the value of our customers there through it.
Excellent. Thanks, Rachel. And Jessica, over to you. Like, how are your customers, when you think of the people in your portfolio, how do you work with them and think through advocacy and expansion?
Yeah, absolutely. I see clients using all sorts of reporting tools to help identify their users who are advocates. So those who are highly engaged with their platform through things like logins, but also, activity, earning certifications, as an example. I think it's especially important within customer education, where training is often, it's not mandated. It's often not at a regular cadence. So participation, varies a lot across different customers and different industries. So, with this information, and I know some people have, already talked about their own programs like this, but I see lots of customers creating sort of a power users program of advocates, a user community. For these engaged users. It can be leveraged for things like beta testing groups, for direct feedback, testimonials and case studies for your websites. And they can act as experts within their own communities to influence others to also adopt the learning content and really show that value.
Wonderful. Thanks for walking us through that. As it relates to a learning management system, and how that can act as the backbone to your CE strategy. In essence, LMSs are no longer just the internal HR tools. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, traditionally it was seen as compliance and just to train employees. At Absorb, what we see right now is over 60% of our customers use the LMS outside of their business, and roughly 40% use it specifically for customer education or partner enablement, supplier training, you name it. So I think that shift alone tells us that customer education now needs a real infrastructure, not just patchwork tools. And there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all system. If a platform claims to be everything for everyone, it usually doesn't support what your organization actually needs. So the right LMS needs to be a one-stop shop with the right learning, with the right content at the right time. And different LMS companies cater to different business needs. And it's important to remember that if an LMS suits itself as a one-size-fits-all, that usually means it doesn't fit everybody's unique bespoke needs. So you need to ensure that the LMS you select is for what your organization needs to do. So what we see from our customers is these 4 key pillars when we speak to prospects, but also our existing customers. So the first one, and just in the interest of time, very briefly, self-service foundation, that's just not a channel, it's a posture that you need to stand up. So at scale, customer education has to default to self-service because customers, again, want answers on their own terms. And an LMS can help with that as a trusted source of truth, whether it's true, structured, searchable, or intentional learning content. Pillar 2 is omni-channel access, which is also very important. Customers don't think in terms of platforms. They think in moments of confusion, those light bulb moments, urgency, and curiosity. Education has to meet them where they're at, not where they need to go. And an LMS can really help embed channels into a product, integrate with systems, your CRM, your HCM solution, you name it. The third pillar, learning communities. I think, Jessica, you just referenced the importance of communities and customers wanting peer-to-peer networking. As your program matures, the most valuable learning often comes from customers themselves. Hey, Rachel, I just launched this program. I'd love to walk you through it to save you the hassle. Like, those communities turn education from a one-way street into a shared experience where customers learn and they bounce ideas off each other, which again is crucial. And then the last one is lifecycle continuity. I think, again, this one is where customer education programs tend to break down based on my experience. Education is strong during onboarding, but then it stalls and fades during adoption and suddenly reappears right before the renewal. That inconsistency really creates risk. And an LMS can allow the education to evolve alongside the customer journey, to advance use cases, to expansion. The same system in the flow of work drives customer continuity. So I would just land the message by closing out. CE doesn't fail because a team doesn't care. It fails because it's not built on the right foundation. And when learning is treated as an infrastructure rather than content, it stops being a cost center and you can propel your organization to new heights. Okay, I think we might skip the poll just in the interest of time, because I think when we talk about measuring, I know me and Andrew were chatting about this earlier on. He's wrote a book on measurement of learning, so he's your man to hook up with after in terms of learning all things measurement around learning. But as I said earlier on, if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. You need to get a seat at the table with your executive team to fight for your program. And you need to have hard stats, not just anecdotes. So the hard truth is you can't measure everything, and trying to will just dilute impact and drive you around the bend, just frankly speaking. So customer education, again, works best when it's built on one clear business goal or objective, not just a grab and a free-for-all bag of metrics. Pick one outcome. Is it that you want to improve customer retention? Is it that you want to improve your support deflection, partner enablement? And when you have that picked, then start designing your metrics that you're going to measure. Is it course completions? Is it attendance of instructor-led courses? Is it time spent in the system? But when an executive asks you, because I've been there, is this really moving the business? Answer me yes or no. The answer is often hazy and unclear. And that's a very awkward moment for you and the executive team, not just because learning isn't valuable, because an activity isn't an influence. You can't deem this as a tick the box exercise. You need to be able to show what results it drove. So column one, design your strategy. This is where most programs go wrong. Start with the content instead of the intent. You can't measure it all until, as I said, you have to lead with influence. So decide what the business outcome is, then sequentially work through the list. Work backwards. So identify, if I was to boil this down, like the behaviors that you're trying to drive, the feature usage, the faster onboarding, the fewer support tickets, and only then you design the learning. The question stops being, what should we teach? And becomes, what behavior needs to change? The middle column here then is creating the measurement infrastructure. So influence tends to only show up when systems connect. So a learning management system, a customer relationship management tool, product data. If learning data lives in its own silo or in its own lane, it's never going to tell a story. You need to bring everything in as a cohesive tell story. The goal isn't perfection, it's direction. And connect what you can, all the dots, establish the baselines, and that's when you're going to be able to articulate the value add. And lastly, the right column there with the launch, learn, and optimize. This is where influence, I can't emphasize this enough, becomes visible. When you launch the program, measure the behavior, look for patterns, solicit feedback from your customers. What did you think of this new course? Is it good? Add a course evaluation at the end. Did you find it useful, effective? You're never going to get everything right. That is the power and essence of learning. You fail gracefully, you learn from your mistakes, and you move on. We've had many of those, and when we built our program, but you quickly pivot, you learn, and you see then who's adopting faster, who's stalling, what signals are showing up. At this point, education becomes predictive, not reactive. You refine the model, you adjust the experience, you listen to your customers, and you close the feedback loop. Do we have time for a poll? Just checking the time. There were 3 minutes left. Might do it very quickly.
Very quickly. So the poll question we've got, let me find my question, which is the poll 4, isn't it? Yeah. Which metrics do you use? Bear with me one moment. There we go. Okay, so what do you use to track the success of your customer education? Interesting to see. Okay, so people are starting to put some results in. I'm broadcasting them. I don't know. Thank you for the people who are being honest to say they don't know how they're tracking it.
NPS is on the rise.
NPS is the common one, and course completion. There's a surprise. Those are the two that tend to be the two most common ones. Yeah, NPS is the big one. A third of the people who've responded have said that. I'll just make that slide bigger. There we go.
Wonderful. Thanks, Andrew. So I'll close out by saying everything that we talked about today ladders nicely into this slide. Customer education or enablement or engagement, whatever you refer to it as, isn't about measuring more things. It's about measuring the right thing at the right time for the right reason. If adoption is the priority, measure what customers do after they learn, when they participate in one course. If cost is the reduction or the priority, measure what never becomes a ticket. And lastly, if retention is the priority, measure engagement before churn ever shows up in the books. Because here's the shift, and I'll close out by this. The companies that win in the next few years won't be the ones with the most content out there or the prettiest dashboards or the best completion rates. They will be the ones that can look at the learning data and say, we know who's at risk, we know what's happening in the field, and we know where we need to go. And that's when customer education stops being what you report on and starts becoming something the business can actually run on. So very insightful session. I might pass it over to Jessica for a very quickly Q&A if we have time.
I'd love to say we've got time for questions. We have,
We're on the crunch.
we have 46 seconds. I don't think we're going to be able to make any questions, unfortunately. Thank you, team. Awesome stuff. You could tell by the chat and the different elements where the conversation's happening. Really useful stuff. And again, it comes back to the audience, 50 people in the room all going, yeah, this is relevant to me, and they get it. So please do, if you want to connect with the team here, please do connect with them. There are some links available to you. So a webinar on customer education strategies, strongly suggest going and have a looking at that one that Absorber put together. There's a fabulous ebook which they've got, enhancing your customer experience with an LMS for customer education, which is available for free to download. And there are 2 web pages. The first one, see how other Absorb customers are using strategic learning and the pieces Darren described, and then also subscribe to the newsletter for more content on this. You have got Jessica's, Rachel's and Darren's LinkedIn details. Please feel free to connect with them. Mine's on there as well if you would like to connect with me. If you have any further questions, direct them back to the team here. Jessica, Rachel and Darren with any questions that you may have, and I'm sure they'll pick them up. Like we said before, the recording will be available from should be tomorrow, Monday at the latest, just to confirm that you can go back through, you can look at the chat comments and so on. A massive thank you. Well done. Absolutely fabulous. There's so much stuff in there. I'm going to go back and have a look back through the slides. I'm lucky I've got the slides already. I can go back through them and find the stuff that I think is important. So really do appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody. And everybody in the room is already saying thank you as well. So fabulous, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. We are back in 2 weeks' time. So 2 Thursdays' time, we have 2 more sessions. And we've also got a slight change in time as well. So we will be running a later session so that more people in the US, particularly in the East Coast, will be able to join. So it'll be slightly later in the day for you. So you won't have to be getting up maybe at the 5 o'clock in the morning for those sessions. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. I'm going to stop the recording now. Just bear with me one moment.